Okay, I guess if I were to rename my presentation to kind of match today's theme, I would say it's what do local governments want? And how can we get what they need to help be partners in pipeline safety? So I work for a consulting, engineering, GIS, and public involvement firm. So these projects are like the perfect nexus of all those things. It's fun when we get to work all together. And we've been able to help 5 communities in Utah and Idaho carry out these tag projects, help them get the grants and do the projects. So there's lots of different elements to the projects, but I'm going to focus on 3 just to really show the benefits to the public, the local governments, and to pipeline operators, and pipeline safety in general. So the first one we're going to focus on is public information. And the first case study of this is if you're at all familiar with the Salt Lake City area, and because you're here, you'll probably be the kind of people that would notice north of Salt Lake City there's lots of refineries, oil and gas refineries. And in a community next door to that, there's 6 different pipelines that run through this community that feed those refineries. And they applied for this grant in 2012, or 11, I got it in 12, anyway. And they had a couple of reasons for doing that. The first being that their population from 2000 to 2010 had grown by 50%, and much of that new development was in areas where nothing was there but pipelines. And so the city was concerned that its citizens and people building those new homes weren't aware of the Call 811 program, and when they're putting in their landscaping and their fences and that sort of thing, they wouldn't know to call or think it was convenient to call, that sort of thing. So that was the first reason. Another reason was that just a couple of years prior to this, there was an explosion at one of the nearby refineries and a pipe ruptured, and the impact shook some homes off their foundations, they were damaged, that sort of thing. And so all of a sudden people realized, oh, we live here, what does this mean for us? So there was a lot of public concern as well. So the city wanted to be able to address that, and they wanted to be able to tell their citizens, we're ready for this, we understand what's going on, we have the information, and they didn't feel like they could quite do that, so they wanted this grant really gave them the opportunity to really do that. So as part of this project, we were able to do 2 open houses with the Public Works and Mayor and pipeline operators and Blue Stakes, which is our utility marking in Utah, that entity. And we had really good public response. Not many people come to public meetings unless there's really a problem, but we had really good response, and their fire department, they were able to learn a lot, people were, and be reassured. I don't know, outside of groups like this, not a lot of people know that PHMSA exists, or that there are state and federal regulators that are focused on pipeline safety. So it was sort of reassuring for them. And then another level, to know that their city was looking out for them. So that was a really good effort. And then, they just received like a brochure in the mail with their utility bill of what they could do to prevent pipeline problems, and then, what their city was doing to be prepared. And then updates to the city website, that sort of thing. So just this outreach. And that just had really good outcomes. The city is now able to make better land use decisions, more informed land use decisions, because now they have all of the pipeline locations mapped in their GIS. So all of that's there, and they've had really good outcomes from that. The next one I'll focus on is a tiny little city, a small farming community in northern Utah. And cities, they have a lot of responsibilities, and small cities have some of those same responsibilities without the resources. This city has 2 full-time staff and 1 part-time person. So you can imagine that pipeline safety never quite makes it to the top of the priority list. So they took this grant as the impetus to do that, because along their main street, they have a high-pressure gas main that runs all along their main street, and transmission lines coming off of that. But also along here are 3 schools, their city offices, their fire department. So they need to know, the city needed to know, what if there is a problem? How are we going to deal with this? So this was a really great example of how they were able to bring all of the officials together because of this grant and make pipeline safety a priority. So the fire department, the sheriff, county officials, pipeline operators, city staff, elected officials, and most importantly, school districts who were not, the school district officials were not aware of the pipeline there, so they hadn't incorporated that yet into their emergency response plan. So we helped them, again, do a lot of GIS mapping, and we created a GIS-based evacuation zone map, depending on what type of incident it was, so how far out they would need to evacuate, and an evacuation route map, along with the whole emergency response plan and a risk analysis. So this really was good. Like I said, the school districts didn't know, so all of those entities were able to coordinate and incorporate this information into their emergency response plans and get on the same page. So that was really important in this tiny little community that didn't have the resources to know what to do if there were a problem. And now they have all that information incorporated with their city GIS and can see how the pipelines interact with their city utilities as well, and how they may be impacted if there were to be a leak or rupture, that sort of thing. So let's see, the last one, this shows the real value of having this information in an emergency as both a preventative and in an emergency as a response. So this is a county in a really mountainous area of Utah, and it's a large geographic area too. This county's pretty large, and most of it, is mountainous and prone to wildfire. We get a lot of those out in the west. So this, I'll kind of show you, this is just a snippet of their county, and what their emergency services department, who was the recipient of this grant, what they had to wrap their minds around. So mapped on here are the city utilities, water, sewer, and I don't remember what the yellow was, but there's all those colors are the city utilities. You can see the schools right here, and then they also, all through the county, runs a heavily used Union Pacific rail line, I-84, major east-west transportation corridor, especially for trucks. And then you'll see that red arrow is their main water tank. And then all along here, all through the county runs the Weber River, which provides water to 21% of Utah's population. So they had a lot that they were concerned with. And then, so we helped them map their pipelines, and this is gonna look crazy, but they have 7 different pipelines running through their county. It looks crazier than it really is, but those are the evacuation routes for the different incidents as well. And they go out to a mile for if there were to be a fire. So, and they can toggle this stuff off and on in GIS, so it doesn't have to be so complicated. They could just click on just one or some of the different features if whatever they want to see. So we helped them map the pipeline locations, and then also just things like mapping the fire hydrants and river diversions and valve shutoffs, that sort of thing. So you can imagine, I don't know if any of you have seen those binders that they give to local governments, that pipeline operators give. Well, they had 7 of these sitting on the shelf. So if you're out responding to a wildfire, and you are getting ready to dig your fire line or something, you have to contact the pipeline operator immediately, and you have to know exactly where those pipelines are so you don't disrupt them and cause an even bigger problem. So all of this information for their GIS is available on an online application on their phone or tablet. So they could immediately click on one of those pipelines, see what material it's taking, and have the contact information for the operator and call it immediately. I'm sorry, I've got a little cold. They could have them on the phone and say, we need to dig our fire line, we need to talk to you right now. So you can see how a minor incident is prevented from becoming like a newsworthy, catastrophic incident, right? Same thing with the river diversions. If there were to be a leak into the river, they could call the water district right then and say, shut off that diversion so it doesn't contaminate the drinking water supply. So I think the message I really want to get across is this has been really beneficial for municipalities to have, because they have the information and powerful tools to become like true partners in pipeline safety. But without that, they don't have the resources or really the public impetus to push this along until something goes wrong. They don't know all the great work that all of you do until something goes wrong. So that's what I had. So thank you so much for letting me be with you today.